I want to talk to you about not playing craps with diarrhea, not taking the risk of further impacting your pre-weaning mortality in a way that affects your overall mortality in your farrowing house. How much is it costing you when you have 1% more? What does 1% mortality cost you on a per pig basis? Any idea? Any guesses there? It depends on your feed costs. It depends on whether you have new facilities or more paid-for facilities. But we would estimate between 35 to 50 cents per pig per 1% of mortality. So on a 2,400 sow farm, if you reduce that mortality, let's say 3 percentage points, you might be looking at an additional $75,000 per year if you are able to make that impact. Diarrhea in your farrowing house can cause that sort of impact, can cause that sort of variation in your mortality. How many folks see your mortality go up when you have seasonal bouts with diarrhea? Yeah, I'm seeing some heads nodded. How many people see your pig quality go down? Absolutely. Some of the damage that is occurring inside of those pigs when they have diarrhea tears up their gut so much that they are affected throughout their lives. They are going to be poorer performers, not only in the farrowing house, but in the nursery, in your finisher barns. They might end up being calls, deads, lights. They are costing you not just on the sow, but also later on. So we're going to talk today about things that we can do to prevent, treat, and just reduce the risk of this occurring. Okay, pre-weaning mortality is either acute death loss or chronic death loss. And when we think of diarrhea in farrowing, I really want you to think about how it causes chronic losses from wean to market, from birth to market. And so your financial impact is not only that 3% increased mortality in farrowing. That financial impact is all the way to market. So when you walk into your farrowing house and you see this pig with this sort of watery liquid behind it, the first thing that I want to encourage you to do is to get your veterinarian involved. How you work with diarrhea throughout the year can be very seasonal. It can change. What you've had in the past may not be what you're dealing with right now. And you need to involve your veterinarian diagnostically into figuring out what is happening in the barn. And so very often what our first reaction needs to be when we see diarrhea start to creep up again is just to take a diagnostic survey of what's going on with those pigs, so that over time you can record and say, oh yeah, it looks like in late September, early November, we are seasonally seeing a peak of rotavirus, and you can log that and follow that over time. So often as veterinarians we're called into a situation, well doc, this diarrhea has been going on for a couple months now. And so we're often dealing not with what the primary cause is, but maybe what the secondary cause is as well. And so solving that problem and getting us back on track can be more timely than if the veterinarian has a chance to impact early on. One of the things we want you to look at, I don't think that's pretty small, is to evaluate the age at the onset of diarrhea. When you're calling up your vet, that's one of the first things they're going to want to know. How early is it? Is it in the first 3 days? Is it happening after day 5? That information is very important. Is the season changing? What's going on with ventilation? Very often this time of year we start to see spotty amounts of diarrhea as the nights cool down and we have drafts coming in and dropping on specific litters of pigs. So is it spotty around the barns? Is it a management issue? Is our ventilation not adjusted quite right? So with figuring out what's going on with diarrhea, very often we have to look very hard at ourselves as managers to know whether or not we are offering the best environment and the best chance for those pigs to succeed. We're going to talk a little bit about cleanliness, and I'm going to throw out the option of even a reduced amount of cleanliness as a potential option when treating diarrhea. But typically our first reaction to diarrhea is to look at our cleanliness, do inspections. Are we getting farrowing rooms clean, disinfected? Are we getting good kill by getting them actually dry? That's sometimes a really great way to interrupt some of this pathogen transfer. When we go through these rooms and look, are we looking under mats? Are we looking at our equipment to see whether or not we are truly doing a good job at cleanup? All right, so there's several causes of baby pig diarrhea, and today we're going to focus on the three big ones. Rotavirus. How many of you dealt with rotavirus last year? Last year, rotavirus was really the bane of our existence on a lot of our farms. We fought it unsuccessfully in many cases for a long time, but I think we found some good solutions because we were dealing with some types of rotavirus that we hadn't dealt with in a while, and I'll show you some of those diagnostic results. Clostridium. Clostridium is often occurring in the first 3 days of life, and it can slow those pigs down. It's something that we need to keep our eyes on and keep under control. And Coccidia, those of you who experience Coccidia on your farm may be about towards the end of the Coccidia season. Coccidia is one of those diseases that loves hot weather, loves humidity, and thrives in that. It's disease of the month for August. But we see it linger often through September 15th, and so we have very good preventatives for this type of diarrhea, but we're at the point where if it's a seasonal effect on farms, we may start to remove it, whereas some farms do control year-round because they have to. So when you look at these pigs, you know, these are 3-day-old pigs. They're covered in diarrhea. For me as a vet, it's really hard to walk in that room, wave a magic wand, and say, it's Clostridium. I don't know. I'm probably going to ask you to necropsy a couple of those pigs, and I'll look at them clinically, but we'd also send them into the lab to help us understand what's going on your farm. So if you call your vet, don't expect them to be able to solve the problem instantaneously. We need backup. We need science. We need to know what's going on. Okay, rotavirus. Here's a pretty picture of the virus. There are three main types of rotavirus found today: type A, type B, and type C. Oops, excuse me. Type A is the traditional strain that we're used to seeing coming through typically seasonally when cold weather is hitting, but we've seen more B and C of late, and those are very difficult to grow in the lab. It is difficult to get immunity to rotavirus via vaccination. Here's a very classic presentation of a rotavirus pig. Does everyone know what this is right in front of that pig's mouth? Vomit. Right, absolutely. So we often see vomit and then a very pale or clear diarrhea right behind the pig. This is another case of rotavirus. Now, it's not that same clear diarrhea that we saw before, but it's more watery. They're climbing all over the sows. The sow's she's not feeling well either. And this pig is obviously not doing very well. Here's another case of rotavirus. So less vomit in this pen and just more very loose stools. Here are results from the University of Minnesota Diagnostic Lab. It's number of positive rotavirus cases per month. And it shows it by type. Type A, type B, and type C. And so here it shows how we have some type A and type C. In 5 is May of 2009. And then as we move into November, we see our first bout of rotavirus B. And it climbs as we get even colder and move into the winter months, and it really peaked right here in March of 2010. And I would say at our clinic, this is exactly what we saw. And in some cases, I had farms that about right here, we said, rotavirus, we have it. But it took us a long time to get it under control. Because what's one of the first things that you do when you have rotavirus? Oftentimes we look really hard at feedback programs. And in this case, the feedback programs were pitiful. They just were not working at all. And this is what we were doing. We were collecting scours, sow manure. We were taking tissues from Scouring Piglets. We were doing it once a week. We were doing it twice a week. We were focusing on sows 3 to 5 weeks pre-farrow. We were trying to allow them to build up immunity, and we were not letting it sit overnight, and it still was not working. And in that particular case, and this is something that you definitely need to discuss with your veterinarian before you do it, we decided to isolate the rotavirus from our feedback material and try to make sure that we were capturing it. And we devised a way of capturing a large amount of the rotavirus type B that was occurring on the farm, and then we put it into ice cubes and froze it so that we were able to ensure that we were truly getting back an adequate amount of virus to the sow. So there are vaccines for rotavirus, and sometimes they work very well, but very often we need a special type of immunity in that sow that you can only get orally. And so that's why we went that route. And that's why historically feedback has been a very good tool. When you do use it, though, so often we'll go into barns and I'll see buckets of feedback that the farrowing department has done an excellent job of collecting. And I say, well, when are you getting that to the sows? When did you collect that? Well, we collected it on Monday, and we're waiting for the breeding guys to come in and pick it up and feed it to the sows pre-farrow. And it's Wednesday, and I'm thinking, what else has grown in that bucket? I mean, what are we feeding to those sows? If we do feedback inappropriately, we can cause diarrhea. We can cause E. coli scours. And so it's really important if you're using feedback to control baby pig diarrhea that the two departments are communicating, and you decide who is responsible for getting that feedback done to those sows pre-farrow, because otherwise it can just sit in the hallway and become something that is not good and not productive to our end goal of controlling diarrhea. Any questions on rotavirus? Dr. Bush, did you see rotavirus a lot this past year? Absolutely. We were feeling pretty dumb about March when we had 3 months worth of rotavirus on farms. But for us, that popsicle trick was something that helped us out a lot. And I know that there's a lot of vets who worked real hard to get things like that under control. I also really encourage farms to keep feedback logs. And in my experience, if we do too much feedback, that can be a bad thing as well. And so, for whatever reason, once a week seems like a good amount, and to hit a window where the sows have time to develop immunity before they go to farrowing also seems to be important. When we see feedback crouched too close to farrowing, that's when the sow doesn't often have enough time to develop immunity. So we usually target 3 to 5 weeks pre-farrow to get our feedback in. And we target approximately a half cup to 1 cup per sow of the lovely mixture that we're collecting. And we will put in sow feces. We will take toilet paper and wipe up some of the baby pig scours. And the toilet paper is something that the sows can digest appropriately. So you can just, put it in your mixture and stir it up. But we'll fill it up about a quarter of the way with that sort of material, and then add water and give about a half cup to a cup per sow.
The popsicle thing, you froze in ice cube, you're taking that mixture then and freezing it so that it's not cold, it's fresh each time?
That's right. We would quantify the amount of, in that case, rotavirus type B that we had put in each popsicle, and then we would be able to add that popsicle to a bucket.
How do you quantify it?
I'm sorry?
How do you quantify it?
Well, we would send it into the lab, get a PCR, and they'd let us know approximately how much they thought was in a specific amount of material, and then we would apply that out. And so
you collect your feces and your diarrhea, and then deliver it out or whatever made mixture, and then you send that in?
Yeah. No, we would actually infect baby pigs and then euthanize those. We would not allow those baby pigs to suckle, and then expose those baby pigs to rotavirus and collect an intense amount of material from those baby pigs. And so we would get a very high concentration of rotavirus type B in those cases. And we only use that method in cases where we were killing a lot of pigs because we could not get it under control, and other alternative means of exposure were not working. And so that was, the word quantify is probably not appropriate. But we would get extremely high concentrations of it, and we knew we had high concentrations of it because of the ease of isolation. And they were able to tell us approximately how much, and so once we knew we had it in there, it was at that point that we collected that concentrated fecal material and emptied out the guts and sacrificed those pigs, and were able to create what we needed for that farm. So Clostridium difficile can cause acute death loss. It's a toxin producer. It affects a portion of the colon that we call the mesocolon, and it causes edema. It yields a watery, pasty diarrhea often early on. Very often we see it in concert with other things, and we often see it. I rarely see it occurring on its own. Oftentimes there seems to be a precursor or something going along with it. It is a toxin producer, a beta-2 toxin producer, when it's causing, now I'm on Clostridium perfringens. Clostridium perfringens can have a beta-2 toxin, and that's often the type that is causing diarrhea. So if you look at this gut here, you see this is the spiral colon in the pig. And when you open up a baby pig, this is not hard to find. But when Clostridium difficile is a cause of the diarrhea, you'll often see this edema in between the loops of gut. I'm not seeing very much Clostridium difficile right now. Have you seen very much? And very rarely has it been alone. Very often we will have some Clostridium type A associated with it. This is what gut looks like when you have Clostridium perfringens type C. I also rarely see this anymore as well. When you open up this gut, it's very bloody inside, and the pigs often have sudden death shortly after failing, or within the first 3 days of life. They will often die within 24 hours. And this disease is very easy to prevent with vaccination, whereas the Clostridium type A is much more difficult to prevent with vaccination. Let me go back, though, to type A, because very often with type A diarrhea, we as a clinic have struggled often to control it. When we think we have the right antibiotic solution towards prevention, for whatever reason, it seems to change and be able to overcome that. And so very often our treatment protocol for Clostridium type A has been to look at ourselves very hard and say, what management issues are we doing in this facility that could be promoting diarrhea? That could be promoting the ability of the pig to see this. Is it not sanitizing enough? Is it sanitizing too thoroughly? And we've asked ourselves this question in some circumstances, because sometimes if you sanitize really well, this is one of the only things that's left. And so on some farms where we've really, really struggled with this, and again, this is something to work with your veterinarian on, we've done a couple of turns of rooms where we just don't wash. Now, I'm not telling you to not wash between turns, but what we found is that it is a solution in some cases to a chronic type A that has proliferated because it's become the dominant pathogen that is left over after cleanup. We never just keep going forever by not cleaning rooms, but we've done a whole month of not cleaning rooms in some circumstances, and that has helped reduce what the pigs are being exposed to, or given them in theory, a better garden of bacteria that they are exposed to. And we'll also do the other extreme where we go in and work harder on cleanup, and we typically do that first. We look hard on ventilation and on drafts. We look very hard on whether or not pigs are getting colostrum after they are born. That colostrum is the most important thing that pig gets in their entire life. And so we work really hard to make sure people are warming those pigs, split suckling those pigs, and getting them off to the best first start. How are heat lamps adjusted after baby pigs are born? Are they warm or are they chilled? Are we making them susceptible to something that is probably normally in their gut? Are we giving this bacteria the opportunity to take advantage of a pig that we have made immunologically compromised because of what we are doing in the barn? If we're warming and split suckling, are we using clean boxes? Or are we using boxes that many litters of pigs have been put through, and thus exposing baby pigs who don't have milk yet to a box full of bacteria? Coccidia. We've seen quite a bit of Coccidia this summer. It's very often occurring on herds that are traditionally having Coccidia year in and year out. And as I said before, there are some herds that we work with that we have to keep on preventative year-round, because as soon as we take it out, whether it's January or August, it comes back. Coccidia is something that typically happens at least after day 5, but I have seen it earlier. I've seen it as early as day 3. Have you seen it earlier than that? I mean, most commonly after day 5. And really, 9, 10, 11, 12 days of age is where we commonly see it. This pasty, yellow diarrhea is very classic to Coccidia, a gray pasty scour. The oocysts that live in the environment love plastic. And so it's really, really hard to clean enough to get rid of the oocyst, the parasite, the protozoal parasite that causes Coccidia. The disinfectant that works the best is often very high concentrations of bleach. We've disinfected rooms as high as 25% to 50% concentration for farms that are having a really bad experience with this. Some folks have had luck with Virkon S, also reducing the level. What have you used? Yeah. Yeah, I'll often recommend, okay, you're going to use this bleach, but remember it could burn your skin, right? So if I have folks wear the goggles, make sure that they're not dressed so that they're not exposing themselves. But it can do a real nice job, especially if you know that you're going to get Coccidia in mid-June, then you switch to bleach, then say mid-May, and get that load knocked down, and so that you have good sanitation prior to this occurring. So crate sanitation is one of the most important things to do to reduce the spore load or the oocyst load in the environment. Here is a nice picture of Coccidia, that yellow pasty diarrhea. And so this is a treatment chart that we have for one particular farm showing what has worked on this farm in the cases of different disease. However, I would say it's very different depending upon what your veterinarian has found in the system and what they have prescribed. There is no one solution to treat Clostridium early on in farrowing. Now, as a preventative, we have an excellent preventative for Coccidia. Ponazaril is an oral preventative that your veterinarian may prescribe, and it's an oral product that can be given anywhere from day 1 to day 3. Day 3 is often when we've targeted it. The one thing with administration of this product that I often see people doing wrong is that it has to be delivered via an oral pump. So you can hook it up to an automatic dosing syringe, which is nice because you know that you're getting the right amount. If you're using the pump, you often see some variability in how much is given. But also, if you give it orally, like say before you're going to process the pig, and then you turn the pig upside down and you say you do castration, oftentimes that pig spits up that rather expensive treatment or preventative. And so if you're giving it, I often ask folks to give it last, and then to set the pig down versus dumping the pig head first into the crate where they spit up that expensive product, but very effective. If you have Coccidia, using a preventative is a no-brainer, because these pigs really, really do bad once they hit the nursery. They're those pigs that once they get to the nursery or your wean to market barn, they get pot-bellied, they start to see the spine, they fall out, but yet their belly looks full, and they just don't grow. And it's much, much better to prevent that pig. So long-term prevention. How well are we getting our gilts acclimated is a question that we definitely need to ask when looking at baby pig diarrhea. When we are giving feedback to baby pigs, is it just to the sows that are 3 to 5 weeks pre-farrow, or are we remembering our gilts who are in development? It's a wonderful opportunity to expose those gilts to what's going on in the farm. Now, I say that, but your veterinarian, because of your health status, may not want you to do that because there may be things going on in your sow farm that they do not want to expose back to your gilts. And so that is something to really work with your veterinarian on to make sure that you're inadvertently doing something that could hurt the health of your farm. But it's very common to look at feedback of gilts. When it is appropriate, we do recommend that you invest in some sort of tub so that you're not just dumping the material on open slats where most of it gets trampled on, but that there is some sort of tub or compartment that they have access to so that you get really good exposure to those gilts when they are being developed. Vaccination programs during the gilt development period are important, and during the gestation period are also important. Sanitation. We've talked about this quite a bit as somewhat of a double-edged sword. Boy, when we go in there and we say, okay, guess what? We've dealt with the scour, we're going to try this. Boy, everyone is super excited. And it does seem often to work for a while, and then it gets real bad if we don't come back in and get back on protocol. But for whatever reason, it does seem to have an effect. But most of the time, we're going to go in and work harder on sanitation first, and in some cases using drying powder. In some cases also where we know that maybe these pigs are having diarrhea due to some sort of management issue, draftiness this time of year even. Instead of going in and throwing antibiotics at these pigs, we will often just help those pigs through the diarrhea experience, making sure that they're dry by sprinkling those pigs with a drying agent, and rehydrating those pigs. Don't forget how those pigs feel when they have, eliminated a lot of the water from their body. Sometimes pans of electrolytes in those pens for 2 days is something that is very helpful. But also realize unless those pans are managed, they can also be transfers of disease. And if you move those pans from pen to pen, it's something that can be a disaster. But if you have someone who can manage it, that's a great way to treat those pigs. Keep them hydrated. Give them when my kids are sick and have diarrhea, the doctor says give them Pedialyte, right? Electrolytes. Keep them hydrated. Here's our litter of scouring piglets. I would say this would be a perfect example, right up here, if you see this pig, of a pig that is not dying from diarrhea specifically, but dying from dehydration. So an effect of the scours. And so if we're treating that pig alone with an antibiotic, we're missing the symptom that pig needs. And in some cases, in some farms, we have gone as far as delivering interperitoneal fluid to some of these litters that are truly dehydrated. You turn the pig over, you pinch up the skin, and you can deliver fluid in these pigs to help them get rehydrated. And that sometimes is a very adequate treatment. And as you see in this litter of pigs, someone has come in and sprinkled this litter with a drying agent to help keep them dry. And hopefully they have lowered the lamp to the point that those pigs are warm. So, in summary, when you're working with baby pig diarrhea, thoroughly review the sanitation and disinfection. Evaluate the immunity that you're getting those pigs. If you're vaccinating your gilts and vaccinating your sows, but you're not ensuring that the baby pig gets colostrum, then you've wasted that vaccine effort. Are those vaccines for the sows? No, they're for the baby pigs. They get the majority of that immunity in the first day of life. They get the best within 6 hours after birth. And so that extra effort towards getting colostrum in baby pigs may be some of your best defense against not only preventing baby pig diarrhea, but mortality in general. Doing things like split suckling, where you take the larger pigs in the litter, put them away in a box that's warm, and allow the lighter pigs to nurse without competition is an excellent tool. Again, it has to be managed appropriately, but it is a great way to ensure that every pig has colostrum. I don't like for folks to cross-foster until I know that every pig in that litter has had colostrum. And so I like to see SS or split suckle on every card if I've seen cross-fostering occurring. Because if you move a pig without colostrum to a litter and expect it to survive, that's not going to happen. You just gave that pig a death sentence. How often do you see +1, -1 on a card? It's that pig that you moved in. You probably moved him too soon. They didn't have that colostrum. You killed him. Did it spread diarrhea? Maybe. Didn't get colostrum, got diarrhea. The rest of the litter got it. Colostrum is one of your best tools to preventing baby pig diarrhea. And if you're investing money in vaccines, you better invest in the people that it takes to make sure that baby pigs get colostrum. how much time do I have? I know I started a little bit late.
Got 10 minutes.
Okay, I want to show you real quick some of the things that that you have out there to talk to staff about baby pig diarrhea, and then I want to give you a little quiz. I just want to thank you for your attention. I hope that I provided some insight on diarrhea. The other thing I would ask you to watch out for as you head into cooler weather is TGE. We did not see much TGE in farrowing last year, but we saw it a lot in finishing barns. And the weather is fantastic outside. It would be absolutely a wonderful time of year to check your bird netting and make sure that it is intact, so that you do not have birds getting into your farrowing or wean to finish barns spreading a TGE, because it is out there and it is not pretty.